Mertech.com with your daily news update. All right, here we are on November the 7th in the year of our Lord 2025. That's 11/7. So let's go ahead and click Mertech on Rumble and come over here to my Rumble channel. This is the video you're watching right now, my live stream episode 1739. Let's jump in here and see what we got going. Hi, you're watching. Yes, nice to see you here. Let me close out the live chat. Slide down here and click the Show More button to expand out the description box. Okay, we have information from American Center for Law and Justice, a Sekulow clip, Black Conservative Perspective, Newsmax, and X22 report. But before we get into that, I do have some shout outs to give. To Mo Bricks, just started following my channel. Jer Liz just started following my channel. Elayer just started following my channel. C Chisholm just started following my channel. Cindy225 just started following my channel. And Palm Gratz GP just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in, and I hope you enjoy the content. Okay, Debbie BS reposted my episode 1738. Conservative, Q-servative, commented on my episode 1736. And Comfortand Joy 22 commented on my episode 1737, and Big John Perez commented on my episode 1738. And let me go ahead and give this a thumbs up. Thank you, folks, for your comments and sharing out my videos. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay, Big John Perez asked about unique chats because I've been giving my statistics here with Rumble Studio, and I have to get 20 unique chats, 20 unique chats in this month. Okay, so far I've got, I believe, 16. And what that means is someone new. Now, Debbie BS, I love her chats. She chats every time she watches. Well, the first time she chats, that's a unique chat for her for this month. So she can chat 1,000 more times, and it doesn't count toward the unique chats. Same thing with Elaine C., Deb Brandt, and you, Big John Perez. You chat once. I'd like for you to go ahead and chat 1,000 times, but the first time you chat for the month, it's considered a unique chat. Same thing with M. Coco 41 and all the others. Blue Peahen. I love all your chats. I appreciate those, but I need 20 unique people, 20 different people to chat this month. So if you haven't chatted on my channel, on my live streams, here's your chance. Go ahead and give me a big chat there. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get going here with ACLJ Sekulow revealed what Pelosi exit does to Democrat Party. Okay, let's listen to their speculation because I'm sure that's all it is. But it's good information, so let's take a listen. And if this will start playing.
The breaking news of the morning, that's right, from San Francisco, Nancy Pelosi has announced she will not seek re-election. Now, she's probably got a couple years left?
Next year.
Next year, one more year?
Remember, we have the midterm elections
we have a midterm coming up next year. So she'll make it almost to 40 years.
That's right. So it'll be her 39th year in Congress. She was elected in a special election, so her 20th term is what she is in, but she was not in for a full term there.
I wish she could have made it to the 40. You know, like when someone retires, they're like, come back and be a Yankee for the night.
Yeah.
Freddie, come over.
I see. Yesterday you were saying, I wish Zoran Mandani well, and today you're saying, man, I just wish you could have gotten 40 years. I think 38 years in Congress for Nancy Pelosi. America's had enough.
Let's go ahead and play it. This again is Peter Doocy talking about that he just chatted with President Trump. This is moments ago.
Yes, and I just chatted with President Trump about this breaking news that Nancy Pelosi will be leaving Washington. He tells me the following, and this is a quote. The retirement of Nancy Pelosi is a great thing for America. She was evil, corrupt, and only focused on bad things for our country. She was rapidly losing control of her party, and it was never coming back. I'm very honored. She impeached me twice and failed miserably twice. Nancy Pelosi is a highly overrated politician.
Yeah. I mean, that is,
no one can say it like he can.
I mean, you say it like an angry, ex-girlfriend online, just being just mad that your former boyfriend went to jail. I mean, that's kind of how it feels. It's like this, he deserves it, here's why. The quote was, the retirement is great, evil, corrupt, and only focused on bad things for our country. We disagreed vehemently on all topics. That's what, a normal politician would say.
About him,
people wanted to hear,
truthful.
She impeached me twice, failed miserably, which she did. Impeach him twice, and of course, look what happened. He was reelected President of the United States by an overwhelming margin. There's also a clip from Mike Johnson who said essentially that should be a wake-up call to everybody that Nancy Pelosi at 85 years old, it's San Francisco liberal, not liberal enough for where the party stands right now.
Former Speaker Nancy Pelosi has now announced her retirement this morning. That is a very important sign that I hope that you all will delve into. Even the famous San Francisco liberal is not far left enough for the neo-Marxists.
I think that was interesting from him. Obviously, she can retire. I don't think anybody feels like she didn't put in her proper time after 39 years in this. And of course, so much times, so long as the speaker. Of course, President Trump focuses a bit on her impeachments of him. Of course, remember the tearing up the speech at the end of the State of the Union, all of the theatrics that went with it.
When we look at what now will happen in San Francisco, there will be a primary, I assume, a pretty aggressive primary of people that want to fill that seat that there is leaving a power vacuum in Washington. I mean, when someone has held a seat for almost 40 years, that seat also has the prestige of someone who was the Speaker of the House twice. Someone is going to want to get in there. Now, it does leave a power vacuum in Washington, D.C. for many reasons. Even though she no longer was in her leadership role as the party leader, the minority leader in this case, as they don't hold the majority of the House, but previously twice as Speaker of the House, the only female speaker in our history was Nancy Pelosi.
That's pretty wild.
It leaves a power vacuum. You remember, that image of her tearing up the State of the Union. You also think of how much power she wielded in Congress in being able to negotiate with the Senate and get things done for her agenda, as well as she was the major factor in pushing out President Biden, who she had a long-term friendship with and long-term relationship with, when he was running for re-election in this past election cycle. Even though she was no longer the leader of the party, she was still de facto leader of the party. She wasn't necessarily what Hakeem Jeffries is, where he's going out and making all the statements. But this is a lot of power that will be opening up for, you will see jockeying for a position within the party, within the House of Representatives, with her presence gone. That's where the big question comes. Not just in that primary in San Francisco, because that will be a new member of Congress. They won't have the power on the committees and things as
much. They won't have 20 terms behind them.
But what you will see in Congress is who's stepping up to fill that power vacuum. Will it be a more clear-headed, moderate style Democrat? No. What you're going to see is those forces within the party, the AOCs, the squad type, rush to fill the power vacuum within Congress by taking over internally the mechanisms. Because Nancy Pelosi's legacy, beyond legislation passed and beyond being the Speaker of the House is the way that she commanded the control of her party in the House of Representatives.
Yeah, American
and that's
icon.
things you don't even see in the public eye. You see things reported on, but it is a big hole in Democrat politics on the Hill.
I mean, clearly it seems to at least partially controlled the presidency at that moment.
Exactly.
I mean, you got to think that is not something small. So, of course, this is going to be interesting to see who steps in there. Of course, this does open up the idea of, are we going to eventually see the Senate and see term limited? Are we going to see those things ever come up? I see those comments a lot right now.
Maybe her last act of leadership within her party,
A Netflix deal,
will be something where you see a mass exodus of people who have maybe been in Congress way too long. That's been a complaint about career politicians from many people. That's where even you can somewhat blame or credit that system to what gives rise to someone like President Trump, an outsider, someone who hasn't spent his entire life on government payroll, being a public servant. And I think you can also point to what is so attractive to young people about someone like the new mayor of New York. Take away all the policy. It is the way he talks is about doing work for the people. Whether or not his policies are grounded in science, we know they're not. They're Marxist policies.
Right.
They don't work.
But you're
They're
talking
failed experiments.
You're talking to new blood.
But you're talking to people who didn't grow up during the Cold War, didn't grow up seeing all these failed experiments. And they're hearing someone talking that has never been a public servant. He's very young and is talking about putting the government to work for people. Now, I believe and know that conservative ideals and ideology and programs and policy is better for people when put in place and done correctly. And the Republicans have a big problem about being able to talk about it in a way that people will understand that free market economics and that our liberties that we hold so dear in our Constitution is the government protecting those. And when they are, it is for the people. It is the government working for that. But when you have people like Nancy Pelosi, 85 years old currently, that she's taking that step to say it's time for me to retire. Will there be a sea change where on both sides of the aisle, you see people move forward and say it's time for me to go, and then it gets fresh blood in there, young people who can maybe speak better about how our ideology, our values are better for the people and getting government back to work for people instead of the other way around.
Yeah, I think you will see that. A new wave, a new generation of people who understand how to talk to the online audience, who really understand, who grew up in the internet age. You got to think when she joined the Senate, there was still a decade away from when most of us had internet in our homes. I mean, that's just the truth. That's where we're at. And she's just now stepping down. Now you have, like you said, the New York City mayor being someone who is quite a bit younger than us, grew up in this generation. I sent Will a video last night ago. This is one of the reasons he won. It was, hey, answering questions from your conservative family members. And it was very compelling. It was not anything I agree with, but I watched it and said, this is how he did it. This is how he won. And he said, hey, I'm the mayor to everybody. I'm the mayor even to your conservative family members. You're going to have a different generation talking a different way.
All righty, folks, there you have it. And yeah, I kind of agree with their philosophy there, although Donald Trump seemed to have been pretty successful, and he didn't necessarily grow up in the internet environment. It came along as, after he was an adult. But at any rate, we'll just have to wait and see. But I'm sure there won't be anything other than a Democrat liberal come out of San Francisco, because that's all they know. But let's go ahead and click on this Rumble link here, and let me show you that this video does come from American Center for Law and Justice. I'm following their channel. I've given them a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's jump back here, but before we move on, I want to share some information here from 1775 Coffee. It's good stuff.
Still haven't tried 1775 coffee? Now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped, only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality Mushroom Coffee for clean energy and laser focus, no crash.
All single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus you're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions. And a black 1775 tumbler.
$170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is.
Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does.
All right, let's move along here with Black Conservative Perspective. Non-citizen Mexican mayor immediately charged with election fraud after winning re-election. Interesting. Of course, he was probably elected when Biden was president, and that's absolutely fine for him, that everyone from all over the world can take over the United States. But I don't think that's going to fly with Trump's administration. So let's take a listen to what BCP, Black Conservative Perspective, has to say. And again, if this video will take off, it'll be fantastic. I hate it when Rumble kind of lags with launching their videos. I'm going to try to pre-launch the next one.
Good afternoon. We are tracking breaking news at this hour. The mayor of Coldwater accused of election fraud. The charges come hours after he secured a second term in office. Attorney General Chris Kobach charged Mayor Jose Joe Ceballos with 6 felonies, 3 counts each of voting without being qualified and election perjury. Kobach claims Ceballos is lawfully living in the U.S. but is a citizen of Mexico, making him ineligible to vote. The AG alleges the mayor illegally cast ballots in the August 2024 primary and November 2022 and 2023 general elections.
In large part, our system right now is based on trust. Trust that when the person signed the registration or signs the poll books saying that he's a qualified elector or that he is a United States citizen, that the person is telling the truth.
We reached out to Mayor Ceballos for comment, but have not heard back yet. The Coldwater City Council, though, released a statement on social media saying the mayor called them in for a special meeting over the noon hour to, quote, discuss recent events that have transpired.
Boy. So we got to talk about a bombshell story out of Coldwater, Kansas, involving a non-citizen mayor who just got reelected and then immediately was charged with election fraud. Now, this is one of those stories where, once again, the so-called right-wing conspiracy theories have turned out to be true, right? They've turned out to be true a lot, because not only do we have illegals / non-citizens becoming mayors of cities and towns across the United States of America, they're also superintendents, they're police officers. Basically, you can be anything that you want in this country if you are an illegal or a non-citizen, okay? You can be a truck driver, right? You can get your CDLs in California and, drive all across the country and cause car accidents and kill people, right? And Democrats think this is totally fine, it's totally okay, and they will, again, point to people on the right who say, hey, this is a problem in this country, right? This is actually happening. They'll say, no, you are a bigot, okay? You're xenophobic, and it's not happening, right? You are a conspiracy theorist. But it is happening, and we have another story to talk about here involving Coldwater Mayor Jose Ceballos, who, again, is being charged with election fraud just one day, immediately after he was reelected as mayor of the city. You can't make this stuff up. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
Then let's get into the top stories for the day. A Kansas mayor now facing criminal charges just the day after he was reelected. The Kansas Attorney General charged Coldwater Mayor Jose Ceballos with charges related to election fraud. Chris Kobach's office says that he voted multiple times despite not being a U.S. citizen.
Oh, wow. He voted multiple times despite not being a U.S. citizen. Now, again, Democrats told us it doesn't happen. It's impossible. We don't have non-citizens voting in our elections. We don't have illegal immigrants voting in our elections. It doesn't happen. Turns out, at least according to these charges, it does happen. right? Again, we covered the story about the superintendent, okay, out in Iowa. That guy, he was registered to vote in Maryland, right? Registered to vote, Democrat. So it certainly happens, right? It is happening. And once again, we have another story proving that, again, the right-wing conspiracy theorists, right? Us, okay? We were right, okay? We were right.
Ceballos served 2 terms on the city council before he was elected mayor in 2021 and then reelected on Tuesday. Kobach says he is not qualified to serve as mayor. Coldwater city attorney tells us that Ceballos is a green card holder, but he wanted to make his citizenship permanent, and that raised some flags there.
He applied for citizenship in February. So through that, raised the issue of whether he was a legal voter, whether he was a legal candidate for the positions that he's.
Yeah, so again, the question is, how is he able to vote and to become mayor in the first place, right? I mean, if this guy is not an actual citizen, how was he able to become mayor and to vote? That probably should have been worked out before he became mayor and before he voted, right? Not after he became mayor and then he decided that, hey, you know what, I'm going to apply for citizenship. That should not have been the alarm, right? This should have been picked up on before he became mayor and before he was allowed to vote. But the unfortunate reality is that this was allowed to happen due to the fact that you don't have to show any type of proof of citizenship to register to vote. And Democrats are actively going out of their way, so-called civil rights groups are actively going out of their way to make sure that doesn't happen. The Trump administration signed an executive order requiring citizenship or proof of citizenship in order to register to vote. And Democrats have fought this in court, and a woke judge agreed with the Democrats and the so-called civil rights groups in order to shoot down that executive order. Take a look.
Federal judge ruled yesterday that President Trump's request to add a documentary proof of citizenship requirement to the federal voter registration form cannot be enforced. U.S. District Judge Colleen Kohler-Cotelli in Washington, D.C. sided with Democratic and civil rights groups that sued the Trump administration over his executive order he issued back in March that included requiring documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote in federal elections and that all ballots be received by Election Day. She ruled that the proof of citizenship directive is an unconstitutional violation of the separation of powers, as the administration has argued that such a mandate is necessary to restore public confidence that only Americans are voting in U.S. elections. The judge also said that on matters related to setting qualifications for voting and regulating federal election procedures, quote, the Constitution assigns no direct role to the president in either domain.
Okay, they should have added something to that. Only Americans who are alive are allowed to vote in elections. Because, tell you what, folks, there's a lot of dead people. And once you die, you automatically become a Democrat vote. Okay? You may be a Republican now, a conservative now, but when you die, you will become a Democrat voter, okay? Sorry to break that news to you, but that's just the way it happens.
Kohler-Cotelli echoed comments she made when she granted a preliminary injunction over the issue. The ruling grants the plaintiffs a partial summary judgment that prohibits the proof of citizenship requirement from going into effect. It says the U.S. Election Assistance Commission, which has been considering adding the requirement to the federal voter form, is permanently barred from taking action to do so. Now, we did hear from the White House on all of this. They disagreed with the judge's ruling in a statement late yesterday, and we do have a quote here from Abigail Jackson, a White House spokesperson, saying, quote, President Trump has exercised his lawful authority to ensure only American citizens are casting ballots in American elections. This is so common sense that only the Democrat Party would file a lawsuit against it.
Absolutely.
We expect to be vindicated by a higher court. The U.S. House passed a citizenship mandate last spring that has stalled in the Senate, and several attempts to pass similar legislation in the states have proved equally difficult. The lawsuit brought by the DNC and various civil rights groups will continue to play out to allow the judge to consider other challenges to Trump's order. That includes a requirement that all mail ballots be received rather than just postmarked by Election Day. Other lawsuits against President Trump's election executive order are still ongoing. In early April, 19 Democratic state attorneys general asked a separate federal court to reject Trump's executive order. Washington and Oregon, where virtually all voting is done with mail ballots, followed with their own lawsuit against the order.
Yeah, so again, the Trump administration is trying to do something about this. But again, you have woke judges in the way. You have Republicans. They passed legislation in the House, but it's stuck in the Senate because of the filibuster, right? Because Democrats are saying, no, we don't want to get on board with this, right? We don't want to secure our elections. We want to allow illegals to vote.
Absolutely,
we want to allow non-citizens to vote. We're totally fine with that, right? We shouldn't require any type of proof of citizenship to vote. This is what Democrats are against, okay? I want people to understand that. They're literally against. They're filibustering, just requiring proof, documentation that, hey, I am a citizen, right? And therefore, I am eligible to vote. And as a result, stuff like this happens, right? Again, imagine how much of this is actually happening across the country, okay? Our elections are not secure, okay? They're not secure when you have non-citizens and illegals being allowed to become mayors and to vote in our elections.
Okay, I'm going to pause that there. And folks, you know, the Democrats are moaning and groaning and complaining about showing ID when you vote. In fact, in California, it's against the law to even ask for ID. Yeah, they passed that. You can't even ask someone for their ID. You just have to take their word on who they are and where they live. Okay? They do ask you where you live so they know what district, you know, congressional district or whatever that you're voting in. In other words, you can't vote for the San Francisco mayor if you live in Los Angeles, unless, of course, you just go up to San Francisco and say you live in San Francisco because, you know, they won't challenge that. But saying that that's racist. Well, my wife was in the hospital last week and I went to see them. And amazingly, that hospital is frickin' racist because they asked me for my ID to scan it in to give me a badge to walk into the hospital. So, and my credit union where I bank, they're racist because, you know, if I ask for some money out of my account, they ask for my ID. Can you believe that? And the drugstore where I go pick up my wife's medicine, they're racist because when I pick up her prescriptions, some of them, they ask me for my ID. It's utterly amazing. Oh, well, but to vote without ID, that's fine because it's racist to ask for someone's ID when you're voting. Let's click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Black Conservative Perspective. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's jump back here and slide down here and see what Newsmax has to say regarding it's going to start to be a thing. Dr. Drew Pinsky on potential Disney resort tragedy copycats. This is just something here really kind of non-political, but I thought it was interesting and I wanted to share it with you. Let me go ahead and make sure. Let me make sure I got the screen up for you. Here we go. I lost my screen, so here we go.
Back now to a story that nobody else is talking about, certainly not ABC News because of a serious conflict of interest there, but the happiest place on earth, not so happy lately. 4 people have died at Disney resorts, 3 at Disney World in Florida and 1 at Disneyland in California, all in just 3 weeks' time. 2 people committing suicide, and Disney hasn't said a word about any of this because people dying at your theme park is not good for business. Joining us now for more on this, Chief Patient Officer at the Wellness Company and Addiction Medicine Specialist, Dr. Drew Pinsky. Great to see you tonight. Thanks for being with us.
Pleasure.
It's a strange story. So 2 suicides, 1 heart attack, and 1 what they're calling a medical episode. I know you live not far from Disneyland.
Yeah.
What do you think's going on here, and why do you think Disney hasn't said anything about it?
Because they never talk about stuff like this. This is the happiest place on earth.
Right.
Only good things happen with the Disney products. But it's not at all surprising. It's somewhere around 70 people people have died in these parks over the last 30 or so years. And what's interesting about anything like this is it comes in series. Random events segregate non-randomly, and they'll come in series. The thing that jumped out at me, though, was the suicides, because there are all these adults that are trying to live out some weird fantasy where Disney fulfills their unmet childhood needs or something, and you can easily see how that person can get depressed and feel like, I'm going to do it in the happiest place on earth.
Okay.
It's a very grandiose gesture, but it makes sense to me in terms of how the people that are unfulfilled are going there, and if they get depressed, how they might think of Disneyland as the place to do it.
My favorite ride at Disney was the air-conditioned bus back to the airport, by the way. It's wonderful for kids, but I will say my wife and I lived in California, I've told you this, and we went to Disneyland. We didn't have children at the time, and we just felt sort of strange. And I know if you live in Florida or Southern California, that's part of life out there.
Yes.
But anywhere else, it's just kind of bizarre.
And, by the way, I think the reason they got rid of the Skyway was because people were jumping out of that.
Yeah, there's a bridge in Rhode Island, the Mount Hope Bridge, that is a big spot for suicides because it's called the Mount Hope Bridge.
But there's a bridge near my home called Suicide Bridge.
Ooh.
And they had to put up big fences and things because people...
Maybe just rename it?
It's called the Colorado Street Bridge now, but the people that live there just call it the Suicide Bridge because it's a grandiose gesture sometimes that people want. They want people to feel their pain.
Yeah. So one guy jumped in front of the monorail, which is just scary. Imagine you've got children with you. Disney since 1971 in Florida, 68 people have died. And that's
actually kind of small to me.
That's kind of small.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Especially
It's
as
about
older
one a
people
year.
chasing kids around. People got to have heart attacks and strokes. But I think you're going to see it go up because of the thing I'm talking about.
Well, the copycat element to this is there, sort of the happiest place on earth, now a place to commit suicide.
That's why they're not talking about it, and I suppose that's good because we don't want the copycats.
Right.
But I think it's going to start to be a thing.
Information. Truth.
All right, pretty amazing, don't you think, folks? Okay, here. As you can see, this does come from Newsmax. I am subscribed to their channel. Giving them a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, jumping back here. Let's see what X22 report has to say on episode 3769A. The economic system is being transformed. It's about returning the power back to the people. I hope so. Let's see what it's all about.
Investment decision. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum, yes, they're going to try to do everything they possibly can to stop Trump, and they're going to continue with their agenda in regards to the economic system. Because you have to remember, their system revolves around the private West Central Bank system. They're all in on it. They're all part of it, and they don't want to see this dismantled. And this is what Trump and the Patriots are actually doing. In every step of the way, you could see what Trump is doing right now. He's transforming the entire economic system, which means everything that they have done in the past, he has to dismantle and reverse it. And when you do this, yes, you're going to see certain things in the economy. Are you going to see that, hey, wait a minute, there's a lot of layoffs in the economy? Of course you are. Think about it. Because of what Trump is doing and he's shrinking government, how many corporations have contracts with the government? Think about it for a second. Because once again, you have to remember the central bank system, the deep state players, they bloated the government. They created an enormous amount of jobs, gave a lot of contracts to a lot of corporations. And what is Trump doing right now? He's shutting all that down and shifting it from what we had into the private sector. And the private sector is not going to be attached to the government. Plus, all those jobs that were created in the government, they are going to have to be removed. So yes, are we going to see problems in the economy? Remember, this is not just another 4-year election. It's not business as usual. Hey, let's just chug along with the same central bank system and let's do the same thing that we've been doing the entire time. When you're reversing something and you're bringing the entire economic system back to the Constitution, you have to remove everything the central bank has done. And this is not an easy task because once again, if Trump just went ahead and said, okay, let's just shut down everything, the entire economic system would just completely and utterly implode. What he's doing right now is making sure that the move doesn't hit the people that hard. Now, a lot of people think that this is hard. Think about what the central bankers would do if they were in control. They bring us into a depression. They bring us into war. They would say, oh, well, there's nothing we can do about it. Look, the entire economic system is falling apart. And they would blame, of course, another country. They blame a cyber attack. They blame everything but their system, just like they did in 1971. When we moved from the gold standard to the petrodollar system, we were in a deep, deep recession. People lost jobs. Actually, there were rolling blackouts in the UK. There were gas lines where people couldn't get fuel. Did they care? Of course they didn't. They were shifting us into their system. Trump now is shifting us back to the Constitution and at the same time trying to make sure that the people don't get hurt. Now, is it perfect? Absolutely not. But he's transforming the entire system. And he's going to return the economic power back to the people. That's what this is all about. And he wants that ruling from the Supreme Court that says, yes, the president has the authority. Congress gave up their ability to issue tariffs. The only reason they're going after him right now is because they're looking at him going, holy crap, he's making a lot of money with these tariffs. We want the power back. And I do believe in the end, they're going to lose, no matter which way they look at this. And you could see that this is not going to, the Supreme Court decision is not going to happen overnight. This is going to take at least a couple of months, a year. So this entire time, what is Trump going to do? He's going to continue with the tariffs. This doesn't stop the tariffs. And he's going to continue building the parallel economic system. But you can see the deep state players, the central bankers, they're still pushing their agenda. And they will not stop until the very end. When you look at the COP30 climate summit, you have Prince William, you have Starmer, you have all the same usual people all out there saying that we're moving forward because we're going to see melting polar ice caps. We're going to lose the Amazon. Climate change is a major, major threat to this world. I mean, look what Prince William said at the COP30 climate summit. The melting of polar ice, the loss of the Amazon, the disruption of ocean currents, these are not distant threats. They are fast approaching and will affect every one of us, no matter where we live. Remember, they've been telling us this since 1970. Actually, back then, we were going to be in an ice age. And then all of a sudden they realized, crap, this isn't going to work. The Earth now is warming up because of the sun. Now we have to say we're in global warming. Oh, crap. Okay, the global warming phase is over. We're going back to the Earth cooling down because of the sun. Now we have to say, well, we can't use ice age because we used that in the 70s. Now let's just use climate change. That's better. And let's give a time frame. 10 years. Oh, wait, 10 years has passed. Okay, let's say another 10 years. Okay, that 10 years has passed. Let's say another 10 years. Hey, what ever happened to Greta Thunberg? Oh, that's right. She's doing the Palestinian thing. She's no longer with the climate change. Remember, she told us that if we don't act right now, the entire world's coming to an end. How'd that work out? I don't think anyone's buying this anymore. But again, they can't stop. They have to move forward. And they're hoping that Trump fails and they can move us into the Green New Scam, into the Great Reset. Remember, they told us going back to March 2020, this was coming from Prince Charles at the time, now he's king, and Klaus Schwab, letting us know that this is the perfect time for the Great Reset. This is what they actually want, but it's not going to happen. And you can see as Trump is transforming this entire economic system, where he's moving us from a central bank system into a people system, yes, he's going to have to cut jobs in the government, which is going to affect the private sector, because you have to remember how the system was built. And you have to remember a lot of the jobs that were created were illusionary jobs. But Challenger Gray and Christmas, they put out their data, their report, and they said that companies are slashing 153,000 jobs, nearly triple last year's total and the highest for the month since 2003. Technology and warehousing jobs led the layoffs, mostly because companies are slashing folks who were hired during the pandemic era overhiring period. This is the highest total for October in over 20 years and the highest total for a single month in the fourth quarter since 2008. Like in 2003, A disruptive technology is changing the landscape. So basically, Doge impact is very big in this because this remains the leading reason for job cuts announcement in 2025, citing 293,753 planned layoffs so far this year. This includes direct reductions to the federal workforce and its contractors. An additional 20,976 cuts have been attributed to Doge downstream impact, which reflects the loss of federal funding to private and nonprofit entities. In October alone, cost cutting was the top reason employers cited for job reductions, responsible for 50,437 announced layoffs. Artificial intelligence was the second most cited factor, leading to 31,039 jobs cuts as companies continue to restructure and automate. So Doge is one of the leading reasons that this is all happening right now. Because again, if you're going to shrink government, if you're going to prepare the entire economic system for what is coming, where we're going to use Trump's new parallel economic system and we're not going to borrow from the central bank anymore, what do you got to do? You got to shrink the bloated government. The only reason we have this bloated government is because this protects the central bank system. Because this is what they use. Hey, how are we going to support this government? We have to borrow the money because look how big it is. We can't support it any other way. Well, if you shrink it down, then you don't need the central bank to support it. Remember, the only way we can fund anything right now is through the central bank. The only way we can fund anything is through borrowing. Trump is now changing this. And this is what the central bankers, the deep state players, do not want him to do. They don't want him to. They don't want him to show the people that look, there's another way we can actually fund everything. There's another way that we can bring in income. There's another way. We just don't have to borrow. This is what they're most afraid of. And you can see every day that passes. Yes, the fake news, the deep state players, the central bankers, they're going to say, hey, look, Trump's system is not working. Look, food is going up. Look, inflation is hurting the people. Remember, what creates the inflation? It's the central bank. It never goes away. It only increases over time. You can't stop it. It's a train wreck. Even if you bring it down to 2%, everything that was done stays. You're just adding another 2%. If you add, let's say you bring inflation down to 1%. Okay, everything that has been done stays, and you're just adding 1% to what we already have. It never goes away. So what the news is saying, what the financial pundits are saying, actually, who do you blame? Is it Trump? Or let's see, if we just go back to Biden, he created 9% inflation. He's to blame for all this. And a lot of times you don't see this inflation until later on. And that's what we're experiencing right now. So how is Trump countering all of this? He's bringing oil down. He's going to make it cheaper when you go fill up your car. It's going to be cheaper for electricity usage. It's going to be cheaper to heat your homes. This is how he's countering the central bank's inflation and what past presidents have caused. Kory later on X put the sentence that oil prices extended losses toward $59 a barrel as President Trump reiterates his goal to obtain $2 a gallon gas prices. And I do believe it's going to go even lower than that because you have to remember, Trump has built the foundation. We're prepared and ready to move forward. Now, as we wrap up 2025, it's a good time to slow down.
Okay, I'm going to get past this commercial here.
.com and get your precious money. In fact, in 2026, consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. With the oil companies drilling for oil, and all this is going to take effect in 2026. Actually, there's a lot of things that are going to happen in 2026. Trump has now set it up. He's letting the fake news try to put out all these fake stories and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, everything's going to turn around. Think about all the tax cuts. Think about when people file their taxes, they're going to see something very, very different. Think about how the oil prices are going to be coming down dramatically. Think about how everything is going to change. And you could see that the deep state players, the central bankers, they're trying to stop them with the tariffs. But again, this is not going to work because this is about control. Who really controls all of this? in the end, I do believe they're going to show that it is the president of the United States. Howard Lutnick said something very, very interesting. He said, if by chance SCOTUS rules against him, there's something called Section 232, which is also about tariffs. So there are plenty of tariff rules that the president has no matter what. The answer is these judges are going to side with Donald Trump. So Section 232 refers to a provision in the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, specifically 19 U.S.C. Section 1862, which grants the U.S. president broad authority to impose tariffs, quotas, or other trade restrictions on imports deemed a threat to national security. It empowers the president to act unilaterally if imports could impair U.S. national security, such as by weakening the domestic industry critical to defense, steel, or aluminum production, for example. The Department of Commerce conducts an investigation, typically 270 days, to assess the impacts of imports. If a threat is found, the president has 90 days to decide on remedies, which could include tariffs or negotiations with trading partners. So basically, you can see that Trump has used this before. During his administration in 2018, he did this with 25% tariffs on steel, 10% on aluminum, imports from various countries, citing national security risks to U.S. manufacturing. Similar actions have occurred under other presidents. So basically, he still has the ability to do this, but this is all about control. Endgame Macro explains, if Trump's tariffs are ruled illegal, the real danger is losing speed and leverage in a world where both matter. Tariffs under emergency powers like IEEPA give the president the ability to hit fast, send a signal, and shift negotiations before the other side adjusts. If the courts take that away, the U.S. loses some of that unpredictability, and in geopolitics, predictability can be weakness. It also creates confusion at home. Businesses that move supply chains, invested in domestic production, or hedged around those tariffs suddenly face uncertainty again. That kind of policy whiplash slows capital formation and risks undoing some of the strategic reshoring that's been building. Now imagine Congress itself were compromised even subtly by foreign influence. That's not a partisan issue. It's a national security nightmare. Congress controls trade law, budgets, and oversight of the defense and intelligence communities. If foreign money or pressure were shaping votes on tariffs, sanctions, or defense spending, you're talking about an invisible form of capture, rewriting the rules of U.S. power from the inside out. It's not dramatic like a missile test, but strategically, it's worse. You'd have an adversary quietly guiding your levers of economic deterrence while you think you're still holding them. If the courts say that the president can't use IEEPA to impose tariffs, there are still lawful ways to force the issue. He could invoke, just like we mentioned, Section 232, which allows trade measures on national security grounds. It's been upheld repeatedly in court. He could also use Section 301 to target unfair practices, as long as it's procedurally sound. Or he could use Section 122 to impose short-term tariffs and push Congress to extend them, effectively cornering them into acting. Beyond tariffs, he can lean on export controls, CFIUS reviews, and the Defense Production Act to tighten pressures through other channels. The point is, legality doesn't mean impotence. It just shifts the battlefield from executive speed to a legislative confrontation. So if those tariffs fall, the fight doesn't end. It just moves from the courtroom to the chessboard, and how the president plays the next move will tell you whether this is about trade policy or about who really controls America's strategic instruments. And that's absolutely true. And Brian Cates lets everyone know that SCOTUS is not going to decide this next week, or maybe in a couple of months. It might even take a year. This is what he says. People actually think SCOTUS is going to decide the tariff case this week or something. They are hearing oral arguments. They won't vote for weeks, maybe won't release their opinion for months, sometime maybe next year. Do people think Trump's about to lose the power to impose tariffs by the end of this year for something? He's not. And I do believe in the end, he will win this battle because, again, what are people seeing? They're seeing that tariffs work. Trump is bringing in billions upon billions of dollars. He's competing with the central bank. And think about it. From now until Supreme Court rules, maybe in the beginning of 2026, maybe the middle of 2026, Trump is going to be bringing in even more. Plus, once we move into 2026, what happens? Well, Trump's one big beautiful bill really takes effect. All of a sudden, you're going to see the tax cuts that people are going to experience. You're going to see oil prices really come down. And you're going to see that his tariff system has the ability to fund the smaller government and actually help reduce the debt in this country.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there, and he's absolutely right. I mean, folks, they've uncovered a ton of fraud in the SNAP program, the food stamp program, and that's going to be cleaned up. I've heard there's been millions of people discontinued from SNAP because they're illegally collecting it. So, ta-da! But that's okay with the Democrats. You know, if we just give our taxpayer dollars away to other people, that's just fine with them. God, I can't understand that it's all about them being in power. And it doesn't matter if we have to borrow trillions upon trillions of dollars, because they're going to be like Nancy Pelosi, collect their $200 or $300 million that they can sit on for their nest egg, and the national debt means nothing to them. Unbelievable. Just us peons are the ones that are going to have to worry about it. Let me click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from X22 Report. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up.
It goes
I
away.
hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, jumping back here, let me remind you folks that these videos do come directly from the producers that created them. And I've got a couple of extra minutes here. I'm going to do something that people seem to like. Share some information from Wendy Bell. She's going to start up right after her Pledge of Allegiance here.
Amen. You know, there are parts of our country that go through economic downturns. The Rust Belt, for instance. Go anywhere in the Midwest, and you will find people who have been affected by the economy, by changing trends, by calls of climate change, by China buying up farmland, by corporate greed, malfeasance. There is an ebb and flow of a cycle. Businesses come, businesses go, and some places remain wastelands. I live next to one in the city of Pittsburgh, except it's not a wasteland. It's just been forgotten about. And I have a particular affinity for this place. It's called Wilkinsburg. Wilkinsburg is not part of the city of Pittsburgh. It's its own little community. And I look at Wilkinsburg and what's happened to my neighbors there over the course of the last 50 years when the steel mills shut down, the jobs went away, and the people who were making money moved out of town. And the tax base absolutely crumbled. I look at this community that has been basically written off by most politicians in my neck of the woods, and I see tremendous hope there. I see a community on the rebound that really just needs a little bit of a chance. And I believe it could have this rebirth, this regrowth, this a new beginning that would give me much joy because I've watched it. I covered it as a news reporter. What happens when business leaves? And I really hope New York City is paying attention. Because when your platform, as Zohran Mamdani's is, as the new mayor of New York City, is basically just to tax the rich, to promise people who are not rich the sky, to promise them all sorts of free stuff, and then ask them to give money to make it happen. You know, the mask was taken off moments after the guy won. I hope you're listening, New York City. And those of you who live there who are going to be punished by dumb people, particularly dumb chicks, I'm sorry. It's unfortunate. Because if one of them was my daughter, I would spank the liver out of her. Wake up, sunshine. Wake up. And then I would take a good long look in the mirror. Because the indoctrination doesn't happen overnight. It is a steady process. But as I look at what's going to go on with New York City, if we're going to be realistic about a Marxist, communist coming in with Marxist communist ideals. Big business is going to bail. The moneymakers who provide the majority of the tax base that pays for everything in New York City, they're going to be like, it's not worth it to me. Not only are they going to go, they're going to take their employees with them and the payroll, and all of that will pick up and go. And New York City will be a much bigger metropolis version of my neighborhood, Wilkinsburg. So what happens when people leave? Well, the money goes away. The jobs go away. The ability to survive goes away. And the people who are left, particularly young people, find themselves prisoners of a failed public school system. And there's no way out. People who own their homes can't sell their homes because nobody wants to move into a community that doesn't have industry. Nobody wants to move in a community that has failed schools. People want to provide, no matter what you look like, an opportunity for their children to do what all parents want, to do better than we. Yes? And so with bad schools, no jobs, imagine what happens. Where do the youth find money? Gangs, drugs, guns, crime. It's where they go. There's nowhere off that path. Nobody's coming in to buy your house. Nobody's giving you an opportunity. And then what happens? You have some of the highest taxes in the entirety of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in this small little community called Wilkinsburg, whose property taxes are like twice what they are in the city of Pittsburgh. The millage rates out the wazoo. And the people who are left behind, who actually give a rip, who actually pick up garbage on the street, who try to take care of their homes, they're left behind. Blight ensues. You got homes that aren't occupied, squatters come in, and then what do you have? You've got mayhem, and you've got despair. See, it's a process. And Wilkinsburg is coming out of about a 50-year process. I love this community. Some of my favorite businesses are in this community of Wilkinsburg. I've told stories as a journalist for years. My favorite zip code to go was Wilkinsburg. Why? Because I don't believe that has to be the story. I don't believe that there is only one trajectory, and I don't believe that once you are lost, that you can't be found. But by golly, it is a long process. It is a terrible slog. And all along the way, snake oil salesmen promising fixes here and there, come and go, promise the people I'm the solution. They grift, they disappear, and nothing gets better. Well, I will tell you, there was one day when I knew that this little community of Wilkinsburg that I love was going to be saved. And in fact, already was. We had this terrific snowstorm. You remember Snowmageddon, whenever it was. I forget the year. And it was just this monster dump of snow. Trees all over the place were down. Roads were impassable. The Public Works Department in the city of Pittsburgh was completely ground to a halt. You couldn't get anywhere to get to my job at the TV station. I needed to get at least to Wilkinsburg, because Wilkinsburg is where the TV station was. The minute you crossed out of the city limit into this neighborhood, the roads were clear. The snow had been handled. And there were two guys doing it. Two brothers. It takes people who are willing to do the job to save a community. And I believe my little neighborhood town of Wilkinsburg is going to see a great heyday again. It might take another 20, 30 years, but it's on the way. I'm looking at New York, and I'm seeing just the beginning. Because people aren't going to want to stay. They're not going to want to fight. They're not going to want to be beaten down one more time in a city that has beaten them relentlessly with really crappy Democrat leadership. And so there you have a population, 8 million people, looking at each other wondering, is it going to be worth it? Is how I feel about my home. Am I going to dig in, plant my flag in the ground? Am I going to get my shovel out? And am I going to plow out our streets like those two brothers did? Or is it easier for me to realize it's not going to change? It hasn't yet. And I'm not going to wait to be heartbroken one more time. That is where we are, ladies and gentlemen. I'd love to give you a positive message of don't worry about it. It's all going to be okay. But it's all going to be okay demands leaders, not just one man in the White House, but a bunch of lieutenants and colonels and captains and privates. And right now what we have is an awful lot of sissies. And I, for one, am so freaking tired of it. You go, Wilkinsburg. Show the rest of the country how to do it. When we come back on the Wendy Bell Radio program.
Okay, well, when they come back on the Wendy Bell Radio program, that will be in my daily news wrap-up. I will share Wendy Bell. I've been doing that, and I've got a lot of response on that. Let me go ahead and share one more thing here with you from Rumble, the Rumble app. Good information, and then we'll move on.
If you haven't already, make sure you download the Rumble app. It's free, simple to use, and the best way to stay connected to the content you want.
Once you've got it, search for my channel and hit follow. That way, you'll get a notification every time we go live. No missed shows, no extra steps.
You can grab it right now using the link in the description or the pinned live chat. Download it to your phone, and you're ready to go.
And if you prefer watching on the big screen, Rumble is available on all major streaming devices and smart TVs. Just search for Rumble, follow the channel, and be part of the action.
Okay, folks, let me remind you again here that the videos that I shared with you are videos that come directly from the producer. Here in the description box, I have a link to the videos themselves, as well as a link to the producers who created those. I don't have Wendy Bell in here, but I'll have her in my daily news wrap-up. These videos that I shared with you are videos that I've posted on Murtech.com, where I have over 55 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. I don't have time to share all of them with you. That's why I do my daily news wrap-up. Let's go ahead and take a look here at my playlist. I've got some information from Dr. Steve Turley, Robert Gouveia, Wendy Bell Radio. As I said, I'm going to share the rest of that video with you. Megyn Kelly, Chicks on the Right, some more Robert Gouveia, official Jovan Hutton Pulitzer, Devory Darkins, On the Fringe, a lot of great stuff, so don't miss it, okay? You can go ahead and take a break, grab a donut, a cup of coffee, or a sandwich and a soft drink, or a beer, and meet me back here at 9:30. Give me a chance to get things updated and get my Rumble studio ready, and we'll kick this off at 9:30. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for being with me. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.